What really happened at Custer's last stand? Not from a commander's report, but from the fighter who was there, riding, battling, and surviving the blood-soaked ridges of Little Bighorn. This is the story of Woodenleg, a Cheyenne warrior who saw it. Woodenleg, a Cheyenne warrior, fought in the 1876 Battle of Little Bighorn. Originally named Kensito, he received his name after a leg wound in a fight with a wooden substitute. As a member of the Northern Cheyenne, he was a respectable warrior. He engaged in many clashes against the U.S. Army, including the fight with Custer's 7th Cavalry at Little Bighorn. After the battle, he retreated to Canada with other fighters before ultimately returning to reside on the Northern Cheyenne reservation in Montana, where he passed away in 1940. Woodenleg is recognized for recounting his recollections of Little Bighorn to researchers, giving a crucial Native American perspective of the battle. His account has been recorded in books and records, providing a distinct viewpoint on this decisive historical moment. Remember to like and subscribe to help our channel expand. I was asleep when a sudden noise woke me. Something in the sound scared me. I got up, hearing carefully. My brother, Yellowhair, also stirred. We both jumped to our feet. Confusion had erupted throughout the camp. Gunshots echoed from afar. We rushed from the trees to get a better view. The shooting seemed to come from the top of the village. Our people were scattering, some fleeing west toward the hills, others rushing downstream. Women screamed, warriors shouted, and elders called warnings. "Soldiers are coming! Young men, help us!" We ran to our lodge. Terror filled the air. Women quickly gathered belongings for escape. Some fled north or across the water with nothing. Youngsters searched for their mothers, while mothers called out worryingly for their children. I grabbed my rope and gun, then ran toward the pasture where our horses had been grazing. I spotted 3 young herders. One was catching bugs. The other 2 were cooking fish over a small fire. I yelled a warning and asked about the horses. Without a word, they leapt onto their tethered ponies and raced toward camp. Right then, Bald Eagle's shout rang out, telling them to bring the horses quickly. 2 other boys were already herding them in. I was gasping for breath. Running was never my strength. I could walk for miles, but running left me breathless. I trudged back to our lodge. My father, marked with scars, had already fetched my favorite horse from the returning herd. I emptied my war bag and prepared for battle. I tore off my ordinary clothes and pulled on a new pair of leggings, a gift from an Oglala Sioux. A fine cloth shirt came next. I kicked off my old moccasins and slipped into decorated ones. My father draped a blanket over my horse and fashioned a bridle from the rawhide rope, soothing the animal. "Hurry," he urged. I moved as fast as I could, but still needed time. I took my paints to a mirror. With care, I painted a dark circle around my face, filling it in with red and yellow. I combed my hair, tying it with a buckskin strap. Bullets, percussion caps, and my powder horn were the final touches. "Hurry," my father repeated. So I left my hair untied and ungreased. I jumped onto my horse and rode after the other warriors. My brother had already gone ahead. He wore a buckskin shirt decorated with crow feathers, but thick dust clouded the air, limiting my sight. I followed the group of mounted warriors moving ahead. We passed the Oglala camp, where numerous riders swarmed the soldiers, who fired ceaselessly. We answered with a volley of arrows. I rode alongside the Sioux, flanking the soldiers until we cut off their retreat. By then, they had hidden in the trees, some with Crow or Shoshone allies. Most had already fled. Our warriors moved closer, sending arrows into the woods. Gunfire replied, but we held our ground. More fighters came encircling the grove. Dead soldiers were strewn in the grass and undergrowth. The rest would not survive much longer. Some Sioux crawled nearer, fire ready to burn the woods. Then suddenly, the soldiers burst from hiding on horseback. I was near where they emerged. I yanked my horse around and bolted into a panicked gallop like the others. But they were not chasing us. They were running for their lives, charging across the open plain toward the stream. We stopped only briefly before pursuing. A wall of Sioux joined the hunt. My position placed me near the front. Their horses moved slowly, exhausted. Ours flew like the breeze. We closed the gap quickly. I shot 4 times. Over the uproar, one voice boomed, "I had no part with the soldiers. I'm all Indian, all Cheyenne." The voice of Little Wolf, one of our 4 honored old chiefs, roared over the angry mob. Speaking in our language, which few Sioux comprehended, he stood tall among 7 lodges of families who had just come. Yellow Horse, a Southern Cheyenne elder, pushed me forward. "You're his kin and speak Sioux. Be his interpreter." As we moved through the aggressive crowd, I saw even some Cheyennes, like White Bull, anguished over his injured son, noisy walking, claiming Little Wolf was aiding soldiers. When I asked him, the chief's eyes flashed. "You foolish boy, would I bring women and children to join soldiers? Does anyone believe I'm a white man's dog?" His chest expanded. "I'll fight any man who says my heart isn't Cheyenne." Little Wolf described how his band had seen soldiers camped on the upper Rosebud, journeyed warily through the dark, discovered abandoned army gear, observed the battle from faraway hills, only approached when gunfire quieted. After I translated his account, the Sioux war chief pronounced him guiltless. Though some muttered about his late appearance, the conflict ended when Little Wolf's women gave out valuable reservation sugar and coffee to ease disagreements. That afternoon, our people performed sacred burials. Lame White Man was honored like a chief. I assisted in placing stiff bones into a hillside crevice, gently. 1, preparing a protected recess. 2, wrapping his body in blankets and buffalo hide. 3, closing the grave with flat rocks. His mother stayed to grieve as we left. The Sioux built customary burial teepees for their dead. As tradition required after a death, all tribes started moving. Cheyennes relocated about a mile downstream northwest. Sioux bands withdrew toward the Bench Hills west of Little Bighorn. Most camps settled west of what would later be the railroad, except Cheyennes during the first attack on the Circle. Nearly all non-combatants fled northwest to the hills. Camp circles remained almost empty until soldiers were driven back. Returning refugees formed such large crowds that horsemen could hardly get through. When the 2nd Soldier Unit appeared on the eastern ridge, Cheyenne civilians who had crossed the river hurried back. No one understood the soldiers' numbers or plans. The surprise assault had found our camps unready in the chaotic flight. No idea if they struck their target. Nearby, a Sioux thrust an arrow into a soldier's skull. Another lodged in his shoulder.